Hey, welcome back to the PA Universe. I'm Dale McKinney, your host. I'm glad you made it. We've got a really good segment for you today. We have Wes Johnson that's here to talk about precepting, what it is, why it's important, how to do it, how to get the best out of it, pitfalls, things to avoid, that kind of stuff. You're going to like it. Come right back to the PA Universe. Hey, welcome back to the PA Universe. Like I said, we've got Wes Johnson here. So glad he's here. So glad you're here. Wes, welcome, brother. Tell us about yourself. Give us like an introduction.
All right. Well, I'm Wes Johnson, like you said. Started my career as an RT. I went to UAB, worked at Children's Hospital in Birmingham, Alabama for a year. Actually met a PA through that job, Chris Madej, who's now the program director at UT Memphis, runs the Pain podcast for all the students out there. He kind of introduced me to the field, him and Stephanie McGilvery. So decided to go back to PA school, went to UAB, graduated in 2013, and spent about 6 years of my career in emergency medicine. While I was doing that, started precepting some students from various programs. Actually took a job as a clinical education coordinator for the company I was working for. So precepted PA students, NP students, some of the DO students from ACOM here in Alabama. Actually wound up going back to school, finishing up my doctorate at that point. And then in 2018, what I kind of realized through precepting was I was enjoying working with the students more than the patients. So I figured that was probably a sign from above. So I transitioned to full-time academic work. I've been at Samford since 2018. So that's most of what I do now. On the side, I'm in the military. So I work with the 20th SF group as one of their battalion PAs.
Very cool. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you're here. We're going to talk about precepting, why it's important, some tips, hopefully, maybe pitfalls to avoid, that kind of thing. Again, let's get into it. So tell me, why on earth is precepting important? What do you think? Why is it important that PAs get involved in precepting other PAs?
We can all remember being students, and I think for me, being out of school, I remember preceptors that made an impact on me, both good and bad. And you take little pieces from everybody and you learn from them, which is what I encourage my students to do. There's going to be some stuff I do that you hate, some stuff that you like. You just take little pieces and build your own practice. And I just remember, kind of getting out of school, got a phone call. Hey, you maybe want to take some students? I wasn't sold on it, but I said, yeah, sure. We'll take a few of them. So took 5 or 6 my first year out, and just really enjoyed giving back. And I don't know, I just felt like I was kind of preparing the next generation that may take care of me or my kids one day. I think that's an important part of it. You were at some point, someone gave that to you. I think you should give it back if you feel like that's something that you're good at. You don't have to be great at it. It's a craft like any other. You develop it as you go. I think it's a way to kind of impact. I feel like every student I trained, I took care of their patients down the road. And the other thing is students will keep you on your toes.
Yes.
You absolutely cannot stop being a lifelong learner because they're going to ask you a whole lot of questions. And you don't have to have all the answers, but it'll definitely make you go back and study some more.
Yes, it will. Yes. I was thinking about this interview. I was thinking, the other professions have their culture, the MDs, the DOs, the NPs. There's a physician culture, and that culture is teach each other. And so I think we're the same, right? We need to develop that culture, that PA culture. We need to get in there and teach each other. One thing I found also in our practice, at least, because we take give or take about 10 to 12 students a year, is that we often will recruit from there. When we have an opening, we'll have a student that just kind of was the shining star and will recruit. And so by doing that, I know that's kind of selfish, but by doing that, we can kind of skim off the cream of the crop and keep them sometimes for ourselves. So,
I tell every student that I've ever come across, both in the clinical world and now in the academic world, every rotation should be a long job interview.
Yes. Yeah. And you see those students that need some prodding and they'll just shine. It's crazy. We had one student about 2.5 years ago that it was crazy that not only did she come for 1 month for her clinical rotations, but then she gave up another elective that she had. She stayed with us for another month, and then she stayed during her Christmas vacation. We ended up hiring her, and she's probably the best PA we've got. Although I hope the other PAs I work with don't watch this. But she's amazing. She's fantastic. But so tell me this. So give me some tips. Any tips? Do you have anything that would make someone be a better preceptor than they might have been? Anything you can think of?
So I think, a big part of my job as the education director was helping to select other members of our team to be preceptors. I think one thing that I always saw was you actually have to want to teach. I mean, that is part of it. You have to want to teach. I think you should also enjoy what you do. I can think back on my career, and I think the worst rotation I had was with a burned out PA who did not like his job anymore.
Right.
Students that, I mean, there is a sense to that. Aside from those two things, I think one thing that really helps preceptors and students do well is to set expectations very early and then keep to those expectations. So, a big part of my rotation was day one, like it was a crawl, walk, run kind of a situation. Like I was going to hold your hand a little bit the first week. Second week, you're going to do a little bit more. By the fourth week, I was expecting you to get up and go do stuff without me telling you. And I think if you set that expectation early, kind of helps the student be able to, just know what exactly is that I'm supposed to be getting out of this rotation.
Sure.
Let your students fail, but have a safety net. At the end of the day, don't let them hurt the patient, but
sure.
Don't hover over them. If they're doing a procedure that you feel like they can probably do in the room without you there, then you don't need to be there. Come check their work later. If it's terrible, cut the stitches out and make them start over. That's okay.
Yes.
That's the best way to learn. Keep it professional. I've seen that cause some issues between preceptors and students before. This is a profession. You should be acting in a professional manner.
Sure.
I think that helps. And also I saw something happen among some of the preceptors that worked under me. I see it happen sometimes now out in the clinic with my academic students, is they don't have to like your rotation. It's okay if they show up and they don't like emergency medicine. I get that. Ask them what they do like. Do they want to go into orthopedics one day? Well, maybe find some orthopedics cases in the ER and help them. If you're an ortho preceptor and you realize that your student doesn't want to do ortho, that's okay. Now, they should absolutely be acting interested.
Sure.
If they don't want to do that rotation, maybe help tailor the way that you teach them into more bread and butter family practice stuff that they might see. Most students want to learn. It just may be that your specialty isn't their cup of tea. And I can tell you right now, my cup of tea is not family medicine. I have to work in the ER.
Yes.
But I had a good outpatient preceptor who kind of helped, if a procedure did come into the outpatient setting, he would help me kind of guide me in that direction. So I think if you'll do that for both you and the student, you're going to have a much smoother month.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I never thought about it. That's a great tip. One thing, my practice is trauma and acute care surgery. And so when people come to us, the students either come as an elective with trauma or as the general surgery rotation, because we do a fair amount of general surgery. But one thing I've done is I've gotten them into IR. So they'll spend a day or two with an interventional radiologist, observing, helping, participating, just getting kind of knee deep into IR. Also, they'll sit with the radiologist for about 2 hours, just going over CAT scans, mostly of the belly, sometimes the chest. So I will try to get them into other rotations while they're in mine as well. So that would be one tip I've got for those that are watching.
No, that's a great idea. So at our rotation, it didn't matter if you were an NP student. It didn't matter if you were a DO student or a PA student. You spent your first day with the nursing staff. That was a requirement.
Okay.
So the first day with the nursing staff, one, because they could orient you to the ER. So it really helped them figure out the flow. They could teach them some procedures that, honestly, I just don't do. I don't put in IV. The nurses are way better than that. If they're asking me for an IV, they're probably getting an EJ because they do 1,000 to 1. And then they would also spend one day with the RTs, just kind of
Yep.
figuring out the events, figuring those things out, because that's just stuff that I don't do every day. I think it also helps the ones that have no medical background realize that when they put an order in, there's not some fairy that just drops their lab results in. And that way they realize, you know, if you're nickel and diming the nurses, they're having to go in that room and get blood 15 times. That has to go to lab has to run it. And so it really helps them see all those steps that they don't see in the book.
Right. No, that's a great idea. You just made me think of things I can change in my practice. So thank you. I since we cover surgical critical care, I should have my students do a day with the RTs that are running the vents and just working on the vents. That's a great idea. Thank you. All this was worth it just for me, man. Thank you, Wes. What kind of pitfalls? What kind of red flags? I know you mentioned the stay professional. Is there anything you can think of that as PAs and as possible preceptors we need to avoid or mistakes we could make? What do you think?
I think one mistake that I see some preceptors make is they don't take into account the fact that a student is going to slow you down. It is just, it's going to happen. Students will typically slow down the flow, so anticipate that. Don't get frustrated. But there are some days in the ER where I'm seeing 60 patients, and so you've got to figure out what to do with your student, and it can't be, "Hey, leave me alone, I'm too busy." That's right. If it's the case, then you shouldn't be taking students. There's something that they can do to help somewhere.
Sure.
So I think first of all, that kind of goes back to expectations, right? So if you don't have expectations set for yourself and the student, it's just not going to be a good month. And the other thing I saw a lot especially with some of my, I didn't let any students rotate with any new grads. They had to be out for at least a year before they could take students. But even those ones only out of school for a year, you don't have to know everything. And so one thing I would see is a student would sometimes ask a question and they would get defensive. They don't know the answer, or they would embellish things. I don't know is a perfectly acceptable answer. I tell patients all the time, I don't know, but we'll figure it out.
Yep.
So I think letting your students know, like, hey, I don't have all the answers, but I can probably figure out where to find them, and we can kind of wrestle through things together.
Yeah.
And again, the other pitfall goes back to professionalism. These are students. You should treat them like students.
Sure.
It doesn't need to be any kind of, after hours, anything with the students.
Yes.
Way. I have seen that as an issue, and I drop preceptors because of that. That's just not a good way to handle yourself in a professional environment.
Sure. No, I agree. How would somebody, if you've got a PA out there that's watching this that says, I don't take students, I'm not a preceptor, but I want to now. Wes sold me on the idea, man. So how should they get about it? Is there a way for them? Is it the AAPA? Do they contact the schools themselves? What do you suggest?
I mean, so just about every school out there has a DCE, which is some type of director of clinical education, and I promise you that they are looking for preceptors. There's always a need. It may be that your specialty has a lot, but I guarantee you they'll still give you at least one student a year. And I would suggest that you do what my site did. I mean, we took 20 plus students every year. Don't do that at first. I would take 1, 2, or 3, get your feet wet, kind of see how it goes, learn how to be a preceptor, because just like anything else, it is a learned skill, and it's going to take you a while to figure out what your teaching style is, how you teach, that sort of thing. My teaching style is questions. I ask the students tons and tons and tons of questions. We do bedside. That may not work for you. It may be that for you, it's more of a discussion type of thing. It may be like to show procedure. So I think kind of doing that, figuring things out. But the best way is just to figure out where your local school is, reach out to their DCE. I promise you they're going to pick up the phone and get that rotation established. Start off with one, see how it goes, because it is not for everybody. There's just some people that is not their gift, and that is perfectly okay. But for some people, what they'll find, which is a lot like me, is that they really enjoy teaching. I mean, I like medicine, but I love to teach. Where I am right now. So that's probably the best way to go around it. And if you do like teaching, offer to come to the school, do some lab help, do an adjunct lecture, anything like that. So
no, that's a great idea. So Wes, when at the end of the rotation, is it up to you to do an end of rotation test, exam? Is that on you as the preceptor? Is that on the school? Do you do anything with that at all?
Not as far as exams. So what I've found that most schools have gone to is is a structured EOR that PAEA puts out. It's usually tailored for like the core 7. And then on elective rotation, the schools kind of pick and choose what they want to do, paper, mock exam. For us at the schools that we precepted for, mostly it was an end of rotation evaluation. I usually made our students do a mid rotation eval that didn't count for anything. And that way we could talk at the middle about anything that they were doing great at and stuff that they were struggling at. And so if they improved on those things by the end, then their official evaluation, it was, you started from here, but you worked your butt off. You got to here. This is what I want to see from you. So, if it was, hey, we talked about this, you never fix this behavior, there might be some consequences there.
And when you did that, did you get input from others, or does that all come from you evaluating the student?
No, so on my rotation in the ER, I felt like it was better to rotate with more people. So you spent the majority of your time with me, but I had 2 absolutely fantastic MDs who I collaborated with, who would help take students. They were just amazing teachers, and we had 2 other PAs as well. And so they would spend some rotations with them. That way, they got, other input from people, kind of saw their thought process, because there are certainly things that other people do that I'm not as good at. And there's some things I do that they're, probably not as skilled at. And so I think in an ER setting, getting that kind of wide range of thought processes and looking at different procedures was good. So I would get input from that entire team.
Okay, no, that's great. Perfect. So Wes, when you had these students with you, were they able to chart?
So the way that RER was set up is they didn't get their own stuff, but what I would let them do is I would give them my password. I would let them type up an HPI, and I would come behind, look at it, read it, critique it. We would make some changes, kind of get them in that mindset of, all right, how do I chart as an ER provider? Because that's a whole lot different than how I'm going to chart in internal medicine or family practice. And it always used to crack me up when I would get the student that just came off, outpatient medicine, because they see a high blood pressure and freak out in the ER. I'm like, they're not having a stroke. It's fine.
158 over 80. Oh my God.
Right. It's like, we have to treat that. And I'm like, no, we really don't. Like, there's no LVH. Creatinine's fine. But they can go home and follow up in outpatient medicine. And so teaching them how to chart like through the eyes of an ER provider, which is backwards, right? Because we start every patient's dead and then work our way until it's not an emergency. As opposed to, we're going to start from here and then figure this thing out. That's just not how we practice. So we would kind of sit down and talk about, all right, how does an HPI need to be lined up? And it helped them too, because, again, I did bedside rounds. And so I would make them go see the patient first, and then we would round together. And it never fails. The same thing happened to me as a student. You would walk in and spend 30 minutes with a patient, give a glorious history. I'd walk in and ask 3 questions, and the entire presentation had changed.
Different,
But it's just learning, all right, this is the area that you're in. These are the questions that you really should be asking to this patient population, and kind of teaching them how to get in that mindset. So it also helped them whenever they called consults, because if it was a consultant that I knew and, knew wasn't going to be too mean to them, I would kind of ask ahead of time, hey, do you mind if a student gives you a consult call? And almost all of them would say yes. And then they would fumble through a few of them until they got a little bit better. Like, all right, how do you give a presentation from the ER at 2 a.m. to a hired surgeon? So that sort of thing kind of helped out.
That's a great idea. I do that with my students, except I have them act like I'm the consulting physician, and so they're calling me. But actually, I like that. That's very good. So Wes, I also heard when I was stalking you on the internet to figure out who you were and how to interview you, that were you the Preceptor of the Year? Tell me about that. What year? When was it? How? Who gave that award? I want to hear that. Brag on yourself, brother.
Yeah. So in 2016, UAB gives out 1 clinical and 1 surgical Preceptor of the Year. And so my little team of preceptors in 2016, we were named the Preceptor Group of the Year. which I was pretty happy about. It was kind of a full circle moment for us. So we were proud of it. I always kind of thought I was going to go back to that school, but the Lord had some different plans. And so I wound up at Samford, and as long as they give me tenure here, I'll be here forever.
There you go. Sweet.
It's a good place. So
awesome. Well, Wes Johnson, thanks for joining us today. I appreciate it. This was good. I think everybody that's going to see this and hear this is going to be excited about Precept, and I hope they go out and volunteer to do this, change some students' lives, kind of speak into the life of some of these PA students, into the culture of the PA world, the PA universe. But so thank you. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. Hey, what'd you think of that segment? That was great, wasn't it, Wes Johnson? He's a great guy. I love that man. So now you get to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave a comment, tell us what we can do different, what we can add, what kind of subjects you'd like to see next time, that kind of thing. It's your turn to do something. Get on it. Get off your lazy butts. Let's go. Also, I wanted to tell you about a new thing that we've got going on. We are helping promote a thing called My PA Box. If you're a pre-PA, or if you're a student thinking about becoming a PA, if you're in the middle of applying, you should check out My PA Box. It's really cool. I don't know where it was when I was applying to PA school, but dang, it would not have taken me 7 years to get in. I can tell you that if I had it. So if you get a chance, www.mypabox.com. Check it out. I think that's it. I think that's all we've got. We'll see you next time here at the PA Universe. See ya.